Welcome back once again! Another episode of Battlebots has come and gone, and oh my goodness, it was a crazy one. Let's not waste any time. In today's review, we're going to talk about episode 8 of Battlebots. Now, the episode wastes no time now. We're well and truly in this season, and really there's no need to ease us in at this point. We're just diving in right at the deep end. And the fight card looks crazy today. There truly wasn't a single match on there that I wasn't at least intrigued to see how it would go. And the opening fight was between Free Shipping and Hydra. I'll admit, I didn't think Free Shipping had any chance in this at all. Hydra is weak to verts for sure, but I don't think Free Shipping has quite the firepower to take out Hydra. And at the same time, I also feel like while Free Shipping has a lot of similarities to that great legendary robot Original Sin, I didn't feel like it would have the same ground-scraping potential. Now, Free Shipping came out with the Original Sin-style wedgelets, which will always win bonus points with me. If you couldn't tell, I love Original Sin. Meanwhile, Hydra came out with the same wedges that they used in the fight against Tantrum. Now, the fight began, and Hydra and Free Shipping met in the middle, and Hydra immediately sends them flying, with a second flip also sending Free Shipping into orbit. It seems I was right that Free Shipping just doesn't have the same legendary wedge game of Original Sin. Hydra sends them flying with some more flips, and it seems Hydra for a moment is a little bit cautious, but eventually, Free Shipping is sent flying again, and bits are coming off of Free Shipping, including one of the wedges. Free Shipping's spinner seems to have given up at this point. The damage from the repeated drops from such a high point is clearly taking its toll, and Free Shipping was struggling. Throughout the entire fight, you could see Gary's trying to drive around to figure out a way to get around Hydra's extremely low front, but they just weren't able to. And it's like, man, Free Shipping is just being chewed up and spat out by Hydra. Eventually they seem to have died after one almighty flip, with one more just to rub salt in the wounds. The match does end up ending before the countout can conclude, but of course the judges end up giving it to Hydra. As if he needed it, this was an incredible flipper showcase for Hydra. Not only sending Free Shipping into orbit repeatedly, but actually causing Free Shipping to fall apart with each successful impact. It's a shame Free Shipping isn't getting quite the expected result with this new, more competitive design. Saying that, Free Shipping got to give another fun losing performance. Gary and the team are great entertainment in a losing fight, where many end up being a letdown, which is really rare. It's one thing to be an amazing winner, which Gary and the team often can be, if you've seen them in robo games, but it's even rarer to also be fun when losing as well. So while the spotlight is on Hydra, I feel like we should still give a hand to the team behind Free Shipping. They're absolutely brilliant no matter the outcome. After that was Huge versus Fusion. Now, I had a feeling this could be a lot of fun, but also pretty one-sided. Huge, I felt, had the advantage right away, as Fusion's typical advantage is the way that verts can struggle, given that, you either have to pick to be able to get under Fusion, which as the horizontal could potentially rip off any, loose wedgelets, while if you try to deal with the horizontal, then the vert can get under. That doesn't apply to Huge, because Huge just rains down pain from above. And at the same time, because of that, Huge is so high up that Fusion's vert is basically useless. I'm also pretty sure that Huge has fought several of the Waiachi robots. There's that infamous fight with Hydra. But also the time that Huge faced Son of Waiachi, which means that there is a bit of history here between, the Huge team and the Waiachi team. So I felt that this was actually kind of interesting. So there's a bit of backstory, there's a bit of history to this fight. Fusion ends up with a very different setup to what they're usually using. They put on a smaller vert, seeing as it's basically useless. They ditched the wedgelets as well, because again, what are they really going to need them for? And apparently they put on better top armor. On top of that, Fusion ends up using a bar for the horizontal spinner front. I'm assuming this has some benefit over the triangular spinner, but I'll admit, the aesthetically pleasing part of myself does miss the nod to Son of Waiachi with the triangular one. But at the same time, you do what you have to try and get a win. Now the fight begins, and both robots immediately get up to speed. Fusion gets a small glancing blow, but Huge absolutely messed Fusion up. With just a few hits, Fusion's top armor just pops off like a can of baked beans. Fusion has its innards exposed, and it's already dead and counted out. My god! I felt like Huge had the advantage, but I was thinking Fusion would go a little further before dying, and I expected the problems to be maybe internal with Fusion, as history has shown before, not external, with the armor, the improved top armor, popping right off. Now, it does seem to be a bit more the top armor did seem to be a bit hardier because there was no real damage to the top armor from what I saw, but the fact that it popped right off means something failed along the way there. Oh, that is brutal. I feel not only was Huge on a whole new level, but I don't think Fusion had any way to prepare for this monster. I can't say it was much of a fight, more of a message being sent by Huge. Huge is on a whole other level, and I gotta say, I fear for Starchild. Huge, without a doubt in my mind, is going to go 4-0. After this was Lockjaw versus Glitch, and obviously when it comes to two verts like this, it really does come down to ground clearance. I worried that if Glitch got smacked hard enough, they could get into a lot of trouble, given how when they got flipped over against Riptide, that could be it. Plus, Glitch was apparently having more issues. This really seems to be an extremely ambitious robot, but ambition can come with a lot of headache, really, trying to maintain it seems, in this competition. Meanwhile, I wasn't sure if Lockjaw would be able to survive many shots from the new, more powerful Glitch, so this is a fight I felt could end in a heartbeat. Now the match begins and Lockjaw comes forward, but Glitch ends up drifting to the side. Both end up getting up to speed, and you can hear the roar from these spinners. Lockjaw tries getting round, but Glitch is not making it easy. They're dancing around each other in this fight. A glancing blow from each other and some minor exchanges. Nothing that substantial yet. Glitch does end up getting a nice hit to Lockjaw, but then Lockjaw exchanges with their own colossal blow that flips Glitch over. Lockjaw then suddenly starts to smoke hard and catches on fire. Lockjaw's fine, surprisingly, it all seems to be working. And it doesn't seem to really matter, as Glitch is out. But man, Glitch's weapon clearly hits hard. I have to wonder how Lockjaw would have coped if Glitch kept going. Despite that, man, this fight was disappointing. Glitch, I think, has a ton of potential to replicate its success last year based on how that shot caused so much damage to Lockjaw, as there clearly are some major improvements made. But if they can't self-right when flipped, then they're not going to be able to really make the most of it. Self-righting, or being able to at least run invertible, is pretty much an essential with so many colossal vertical spinners, the amazingly powerful flippers. It's something that can really make or break your performance, and really for Glitch, it is breaking their chances hardcore. Oh, now this was a fight that I was excited to see. Beta versus Shatter. Similar to Claw Viper versus Overhaul, it's so awesome to see these robots that aren't the meta coming to blows. And in this case, it's some of the best of two different eras colliding. You've got the team behind Beta, with people like John Reed, Gabriel Stroud, and Jason Marston. John Reed, of course, being the person behind robots such as Kilohertz, Terahertz, and Beta, some of the finest axe bots from the classic series, even making their way to being some of the more fearsome axe bots in the modern day season. Then on the flip side, you've got probably the best damn hammer bot of the modern day in Shatter. Team Bots FC have created a monster, and truly, this was a fight that I had no idea how it could possibly go. But I was excited to find out. Beta this time came out with the classic hammer. Clearly, they wanted to dish out the mightiest shots that they could, which made a lot of sense because this is two incredibly powerful machines coming to blows. Shatter, meanwhile, comes out with its own classic hammer, two gigantically long forks to try and get underneath Beta, added with tiny little wedges to the forks to make sure Beta doesn't get too close, gets them in that perfect range. And without all that shiny armor, you can actually see the lineage of Shatter, the old days of Mega Melvin and Blue lying underneath. This was exciting, and I was dying to see this fight. Now the buzzer sounds, and both robots come racing right out of the gate. Both struggle a little bit as they try to get the better of the other, but Beta fires first, getting a glancing blow, and then the robots manage to start hitting each other. Shatter does try to retaliate a few times, but does end up missing. Now they can afford to, because they actually have basically unlimited firepower due to it all being electronic, while Beta has to make sure every hit counts due to using pneumatic systems. Shadow eventually does get some more shots in, and you can see that this is a hell of a driving contest. Beta ends up getting the better in that driving contest, while Shadow ends up flailing around, with Beta having much more worthwhile shots as they pin Shadow in the corner and just start firing away. Shatter tries to back away, but Beta just comes in again, smashing away at Shatter. It seems Beta even damaged Shatter's hammer mechanism, so that when Shatter finally got under Beta, Shatter couldn't do anything with it, and Beta eventually just fired their hammer to dislodge themselves and get off the forks to get free and keep the aggression going. Beta keeps wedging Shatter and firing away. Shatter is slowly losing the fight here, as without the hammer and surprisingly without so much ability to wedge Beta, it really wasn't able to do anything. As the final countdown begins, Beta starts swinging like mad at the end, just to further cement to the judges who the winner of that fight was. The judges, of course, give it to Beta, which wasn't surprising at all, given how the fight shaped up in the end. I gotta say, Beta did amazingly well. I didn't expect him to handle Shatter's forks so well, and the hammer did notable damage to Shatter, denting the armor and disabling the weapon. While it's a shame we didn't get to see much from Shatter this time around, or at least not as much as I would have liked, as Shatter is just as beloved in my heart. These are two incredible robots with one of my favorite weapon types. It was still a lot of fun, and Beta is back in top form, so this really was just a lot of fun. This is two of the best hammer teams right now. I love this fight. It might end up being one of my favorite fights of the season. After this, we got Quantum versus Black Dragon, which I knew was going to be Quantum's toughest challenge so far. As while Black Dragon is just as biteable, Team Warrior has a tough robot on their hands and a powerful vertical spinner. If Black Dragon got underneath Quantum, then based on how Quantum typically doesn't handle spinners all too well, I knew that this could end in disaster for the team. Quantum's wedge did seem to have some things to attempt to get underneath robots, but definitely not as substantial as the fork setup on Black Dragon. The battle begins and both robots were caught, but Quantum gets under Black Dragon easily, and I began to think to myself, what is happening to the forks this episode? Are we seeing the fork game finally shifting here? Quantum ends up getting a nice bite in, and they have a driving match. I thought Black Dragon would burn out, as their weapon is actually caught in the jaws of Quantum, but Black Dragon does end up quickly recovering, even when Quantum sends their spinner into the pulverizer. Black Dragon gets some shots in with the spinner, but Quantum keeps going, and the fight is extremely tense. Neither robot wants to slip up, or it could end for them so quickly. Black Dragon ends up running right into the jaws again, and I got to see why the forks might have been ineffective, as Black Dragon actually ended up bucking up. This is because Black Dragon came down with larger wheels than usual, and I have to imagine having, ditching that lower profile for this probably actually ended up causing them some issues that they didn't expect. Quantum ends up managing to badly damage a bit of Black Dragon's armor, and Black Dragon, when it escapes, manages to get some sparks in, but again, Black Dragon ends up biting them in the weapon, and after some smoke, the fight ends up having to be stopped, as Quantum cannot let go. I can't imagine poor Trey, whenever he sees stuff like this, I can only imagine him being like, fuck my life. Especially as you realise that there's just no way to separate robots like this easily. And so the judges make their way in to survey the damage as the fight is called to a close. The judges end up giving the fight to Quantum, and honestly, I thought this was another fun fight. Not only did Quantum have another amazing performance, but Black Dragon, despite one major miscalculation with those wheels, still gave it their all. Had the fight gone the full 3 minutes, we might have seen a different outcome. Still, Black Dragon still has not lost by KO, so, that's something. It was time for the main event hype package, which, it was very simple, but definitely intriguing. Two robots from the same team duking it out. Of course, if you're in the same team, you're going to know each other inside and out, and know each other's robots inside and out. Maybe not the most hype main event of all time, but definitely something with a very interesting hook to it. What happens when you have two robots from the same team battling it out? Before we could have that question answered though, it was time for Terratops versus Slammo. Now this was tough to predict because while I'm a massive Danby fan, and clearly Slammo is tougher than ever, Terratops looked surprisingly robust for a rookie team. I knew it likely had the better ground clearance, you know, assuming we don't get any more of the way the Forks have been performing this episode. Now Slammo raced right out of the gate and immediately was lifted and hit from the underside by Terratops. Slammo's drive is not doing well after that as it's flipped and hit again by Terratops. Terratops' strategy is actually something I really like. Being able to lift the opponent up and then hit them like when they're at the most vulnerable, it's actually pretty good and ends up shifting things a bit. I mean, you can't get underneath Terratops if you're on your back. Now, Slammo's lifting arms seem to have died at some point as they stay stuck like a dead beetle. One last hit causes Slammo to get stuck, and Terratop gets a pretty amazing victory for what seems to be their first fight, at least in the heavyweight scene. You know, I gotta say, I'm actually kind of sorry I didn't rate the Terratops team higher sooner. Not only is the bot robust, decently strong, but it's also very well driven. Very well done by the team, and only strengthens the argument I made a few reviews ago when I was saying that Battlebots really shouldn't say that the rookies have no chance, because sometimes you do get a stunning performance. But finally, the main event was here! Blip versus Tantrum. Now, I had to imagine that this was going to be Tantrum's fight, given how well they did against Hydra, along with how much Blip struggled with endgame. Both robots shockingly come out with their regular forks this time, which is a shocker because I thought Blip would have gone with the piano keys to get that ground game. But then again, after Tantrum managed to wedge Hydra with those forks, I guess I understand, so I was curious to see how this would go. The fight begins and man, Tantrum races off, but then veers off course strangely enough, and Blip wedges and flips them over. Tantrum then gets a quick blow in, but catches on fire! The spinner of Tantrum stopping after that, and one of Blip's forks ends up coming off, as both robots are slowly breaking apart. Which is shocking, given how tough these robots usually are. Blip gets a second flip in, but a more of a mid-sized one. Tantrum is struggling as Blip just is gunning for them at this point, trying to get a third flip in. Blip does a small lift more than a flip, but they more than make up for it with the floor flip. When Tantrum crashes down, Blip rams Tantrum across the box into the wall. After a back and forth, Blip manages to ram Tantrum into the wall again, and then slamming them into the screws. Tantrum does get into pushing as well, but they don't make much of it as Blip recovers and rams Tantrum into the wall repeatedly before flipping them onto the upper deck just before time runs out. The judges give it to Blip and, honestly, I was a little underwhelmed. Tantrum's weapon gave out extremely quickly, making this very one-sided, and Blip, while it was a lot of fun to see it pushing Tantrum all over the battle box, didn't quite have the legendary flips I was expecting to see from them. It wasn't a bad fight, don't misunderstand me. It's just that these are two incredible robots, and I know that these robots can deliver better performances than what they gave us. This is a case of me being disappointed that I got a 7 out of 10 performance instead of a 9 out of 10, so take what my criticism with a pinch of salt there. Overall, despite my nitpicks, I absolutely loved this episode. Most of the fights were either epic moments or incredible back and forths. I'm not saying this is the strongest episode of the season, as there's episodes I definitely prefer more, but it's definitely one of the better ones in my opinion, and absolutely a must-watch. If the fact that one of the fights I criticised the most was Blip versus Tantrum, a fight that I even admit is pretty dang good, that should tell you all you need to know. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this review. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to hit that notification bell down below. I hope to see you all next time, but with that all being said, bye guys!